cold wind moved through the dark alien forest, and the tiny alien girl hid under a broken tree root, her small body shaking again and again. She had been hiding since last night, ever since her parents vanished during the attack. She did not know who attacked the village. She only knew one thing. The elders always said humans were monsters. Humans devour children like her. Humans tear apart small aliens and drink their blood. Those stories lived inside her like shadows, and tonight those shadows felt real. Her stomach growled, but she covered her mouth quickly. She did not want the monsters to hear her. She pressed her face against the cold ground, her bright eyes wide with fear. Every sound around her felt dangerous. Every rustle of leaves, every distant echo, every step in the darkness. She wished her parents were here. She wished someone would tell her everything was fine, but nobody came. Only silence followed her breath. Suddenly she heard boots, heavy boots, louder than anything she ever heard. She froze, her trembling hands holding the dead leaves tightly. She could see light moving between the trees, bright white human lights. The monsters were coming. The tiny alien pressed herself deeper into the roots, her heart hitting her chest like a drum. She had to stay silent. She had to stay hidden, or they would devour her. The humans walked closer, their metal armor shining in the dark, their voices low and calm. But she did not understand the language. She only knew one thing. Humans talked softly before they ate their prey. That was what the elders said. She cried silently as the light came closer and closer. One human stopped right in front of her hiding place. He knelt down, his shadow covering her completely. She closed her eyes and held her breath, waiting for sharp teeth to grab her. But instead, something strange happened. The human whispered something gentle, something soft. She opened one eye a little. She saw the human's face behind the glass helmet. His eyes were not glowing like a monster. His expression looked worried, almost sad. The human reached out slowly, holding something in his hand. It was food, warm food, real food. But she thought it was a trick. Monsters feed their prey before devouring them. She remembered the stories. She shook her head quickly and tried to push her back against the tree. But there was nowhere to go. She was trapped. The human did not force her. He placed the food on the ground gently and slowly backed away. His calm eyes stayed on her, not angry, not hungry, just watching kindly. Another human walked closer and said something to him. She could not understand, but she saw the first human shake his head and hold out his hand. He was refusing something, maybe refusing to hurt her. This confused her even more. Monsters never refused to hurt. Monsters never looked gentle. Why were they acting like this? She felt dizzy, her body weak from hunger, and when she tried to crawl away, her legs failed her. She fell forward with a soft cry. The human rushed to her instantly. She thought this was it. This was the moment the monster would finally grab her, but instead, he gently caught her before she hit the ground. His touch was warm, not cold, not painful. He held her like something fragile, something precious. She could feel his heartbeat through the armor, steady and calm, not hungry, not violent. She stared at him with terrified eyes, and he stared back with soft ones. He spoke again, slowly this time, as if trying to comfort her. She did not understand the words, but she understood something else. He was not going to drop her. He was not going to bite her. He was not going to hurt her. The jacket around his chest felt warm, and he pulled it off and wrapped it around her like a blanket. Her tiny hands gripped the fabric, feeling safe for the first time since yesterday. But her mind still whispered fear. What if this was all part of the trick? What if he wanted her to relax before devouring her? The human lifted her gently in his arms and stood up. His team watched silently, not attacking, not laughing. They seemed worried about her. She had never seen monsters worry about anything, especially a small alien child like her. She pressed her face against the human's chest, confused, scared, and exhausted. The warmth made her eyes heavy. She did not want to sleep in a monster's arms, but she had no strength left to fight. Before darkness took her, she whispered inside her mind, "Why is the monster warming me?" The tiny alien girl woke slowly, her breathing soft and uneven. Warm air touched her skin, warm in a way she had not felt since before the attack. For a moment she thought she was inside her home again, beside her mother and father. But when she opened her eyes, she saw cloth above her head, human cloth, and soft lights glowing around her. She froze instantly, fear rushing into her chest like cold water. She remembered the monster carrying her. She remembered the warmth of his jacket. She remembered thinking she would be devoured in her sleep. She sat up quickly, her small hands gripping the blanket around her. She looked around the tent with wide eyes. There were metal boxes, strange tools, and a low heater that spread warm air. Everything smelled clean and unfamiliar. There were no bones, no blood, no scary monster tools like the stories described. Instead, there were cups, bandages, blankets, and food packets. It looked more like a safe shelter than a monster's den. But she still did not trust it. A soft sound came from the entrance. The tent flap moved and the human soldier stepped inside. The same human who saved her last night. His armor was off and he looked less frightening now, taller than anyone she had ever seen but not monstrous. He carried a tray with water and food. When he saw her awake, his face relaxed. He spoke gently, his voice low and warm. She could not understand the words, but she felt no threat in them. He placed the tray on a small table and sat a little distance away. Not too close, not too far, just enough to make her feel he was giving her space. He pointed to the water bottle and then pointed to his mouth, showing her she could drink. She did not move. Humans trick prey with kindness before they eat them. She remembered the elders saying, maybe this was the moment he would trick her too. Maybe he wanted her to trust him so she would be easier to eat. The human picked up the water bottle, opened it, and slowly drank from it in front of her. Then he placed it in front of her again and waited. His eyes were calm, patient. He did not force her. He did not grow angry. He simply waited. She stared at the bottle, confused. If it was poison, why would he drink it himself? If he wanted to devour her, why was he letting her choose freely? Her stomach growled loudly. She curled up, embarrassed. The human heard it and smiled softly. He opened a food packet and placed it near her. The smell was warm and comforting. She wanted to eat, but fear held her still. The human then tore a small piece from the food, ate it slowly, and set the packet down again. He was showing her it was safe. Her fear softened a little, like ice melting slowly. She reached out, her tiny fingers trembling. She took the smallest possible piece and brought it to her mouth. She hesitated, then ate it. The taste was good, soft, warm. Nothing dangerous. Her eyes widened. She took another piece, this time without shaking. The human watched quietly, not moving, as if he did not want to scare her. She finally ate more, her hunger finally calming. For the first time since the attack, she felt a small piece of safety return to her heart. Voices came from outside the tent. 2 other humans entered. One carried medical supplies. The girl tensed up instantly. The human soldier raised his hand to stop them from coming too close. He spoke firmly but not angrily. The others nodded and stayed near the entrance. They seemed to respect him. They seemed to care about what happened to her. This confused her even more. Monsters never protected prey. Monsters never warned others to be gentle. The humans talked among themselves. She could not understand the language, but she heard worry in their tone. One of them pointed to the map, then to the broken forest direction. The words sounded tense. The girl remembered the attackers, the screams, the fire. She looked down at her hands, her voice small as she whispered to herself, "It wasn't the humans. It wasn't them who attacked us." The human soldier noticed her trembling and slowly moved his jacket closer to her. He did not touch her. He only placed it so she could reach it if she wanted. She stared at it for a long moment before pulling it around her shoulders. The warmth made her feel safe again, safe with a monster, safe with the creature she was taught to fear. She looked up at him with frightened but curious eyes. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered, even though he could not understand her words. The human did not answer with words. He simply smiled softly and gently tapped his chest, then pointed to her as if saying, "You are safe with me." And for the first time, she believed it just a little. The tiny alien girl woke the next morning feeling lighter than yesterday, but the fear still lived inside her like a small shadow that refused to leave. She sat quietly in the warm tent, holding the human's jacket around her shoulders. The fabric smelled different from anything she knew, but it made her feel safe. It made her feel protected, and that confused her even more. Humans were supposed to be monsters, not protectors. The human soldier entered again, this time with no armor. Only simple clothes that made him look less frightening. He carried a small device in his hand, something like a tablet. When he saw her awake, he smiled gently, not with sharp teeth or hunger, but with kindness. She lowered her head shyly, unsure how to react. He sat down slowly on the ground, showing he was not a threat, then turned the device on. A picture appeared on the screen. It showed human children playing near a river, laughing, throwing small stones. The girl stared at the image, confused. She thought humans did not have children, or if they did, they ate them too. That is what the elders said. But the children in the picture looked happy, healthy, safe. The human soldier swiped the screen and showed another picture. This time it was a human mother hugging her crying child, comforting them during a storm. The girl's breath caught, something deep inside her shifted. Monsters do not hug their young. Monsters do not protect crying children. He showed her more pictures, humans giving food to hungry creatures, humans helping a wounded animal, humans saving people from a burning house. Each image broke one piece of the fear she carried. She whispered softly, half to herself, "Maybe they are not monsters." The human looked up at her when he heard her voice. She didn't know if he understood, but he smiled again, hopeful and gentle. He placed the device aside and used his hands to communicate. He pointed to himself and said one word slowly, "Marcus." She blinked. He repeated it again, "Marcus," then pointed to her. She hesitated. She had not spoken her name to anyone since the attack. Saying her name felt like opening a wound, but the human waited patiently. His calm eyes told her she was safe. She touched her chest lightly and whispered, "Leary." The human repeated it softly. Leary, saying it as gently as he could. She felt a strange warmth rise in her chest when he said her name. No monster would care to learn her name. She looked down, trying to hide the small smile forming on her lips. Marcus then took out something else, a small box of coloring tools and a blank sheet. He placed them in front of her and stepped back, letting her choose what to do. She picked up a blue stick and drew a small circle, then two tiny shapes holding hands. One shape was smaller, like her, the other was taller, like Marcus. When Marcus saw the drawing, he smiled in a way that softened her entire heart. She wanted to trust him completely, but fear still held a small corner of her mind. She remembered her village, her parents, the attack, the screams, the fire. The humans could not have done it. Their eyes did not match the eyes she saw that night. The voices she heard during the attack were harsher, louder, deeper. Marcus and his team spoke softly, almost kindly. They never shouted. They never growled. They treated her like something precious. Later that day, Marcus carried her outside the tent for fresh air. She held onto his jacket tightly, still shy but not terrified anymore. The human camp looked busy but peaceful. Some humans were repairing machines, some carrying supplies, others laughing near a fire. Everything felt normal, not monstrous, not violent. The girl's eyes widened when she saw a group of humans helping an alien elder near a broken hut. They were fixing the roof, handing him tools, working together like friends. An old alien woman saw Leary and gasped softly. She walked closer with slow steps, her eyes full of sadness and relief. "Child, you survived," she whispered. Leary felt tears fill her eyes. She tried to speak, but her voice broke. The old woman placed a warm hand on her cheek and said something that made Leary freeze. "These humans saved us, child. They protected us when the real attackers came. They fought for us. They did not harm your parents. They tried to save them." Leary's heart stopped for a moment. She looked up at Marcus, then back at the woman. The truth hit her like a soft but powerful wave. The humans did not destroy her village. They defended it. They were not monsters at all. They were guardians. Her hands trembled as she turned and looked at Marcus again. He stood a few steps away, watching her carefully. Not wanting to overwhelm her, she walked slowly toward him, her voice soft and unsure. You help us, you help me." Marcus knelt down and nodded gently. He did not need words. His eyes said everything. For the first time, Leary felt the fear finally break, not all at once, but like ice melting under warm sunlight. And in its place, trust began to grow, soft and real. Leary felt safer than before, but the world around her was still broken. The forest behind the human camp looked quiet now, but she could still smell the smoke from yesterday's attack. The air still carried the memory of fear. Marcus stayed close, always keeping her within his sight. She followed him slowly, clutching the edge of his jacket like a lifeline. She did not feel like she was walking beside a monster anymore. She felt like she was walking beside a shield. As they moved through the camp, humans continued repairing damage from the night before. But even in all that noise, even with all those people working, Leary suddenly felt something strange, like a cold whisper passing through her bones. She stopped walking and looked toward the dark side of the forest. Her small heart began beating faster. Marcus noticed instantly and knelt in front of her, asking softly if she was all right. She could not explain what she felt. She only knew something dangerous was near. A loud alarm suddenly echoed across the camp. Humans stopped what they were doing and reached for their weapons. Marcus lifted Leary in his arms without hesitation and carried her back toward the tents. His grip was secure, protective, his eyes scanned every direction. The camp grew tense, and Leary could feel fear crawling up her spine again. But this time she wasn't afraid of Marcus. She was afraid of whatever was coming. A human scout ran in, shouting something urgent. Marcus listened with narrow eyes. His jaw tightened, and he held Leary even closer. She sensed his worry. She pressed her small hands against his chest and whispered, "What is it?" Marcus couldn't understand the words, but he understood her fear. He lightly touched her head and whispered something soft, trying to calm her. The forest rustled violently, and shadows moved between the trees. Then she saw them, the attackers from the previous night, not humans, not monsters like the elders described, but her own kind, a dangerous alien faction with dark armor and cruel markings. Their eyes glowed with hunger for power, not hunger for food. They didn't come to save her. They came to take her back. Her breath caught painfully as she recognized the symbol on their armor, the same symbol she saw during the night her village burned. Marcus turned quickly and hid her behind a supply crate, crouching low so she would be out of sight. He pointed to her and said her name softly. "Stay here," his voice firm but full of worry. The girl grabbed his sleeve, her eyes wide and shaking. "No, please," she whispered. Not wanting him to leave her alone, Marcus gently removed her hand but kept it wrapped in his for a moment, reassuring her. Then he moved out to join the other humans, forming a defensive line. The hostile aliens stepped out of the forest, their voices harsh like broken metal. One of them called out loudly, his voice echoing through the camp. "Bring us the marked child, and we will leave you in peace." Leary's heart almost stopped. Marked child? They wanted her. They always wanted her. Her rare genetic mark, the swirling glow on her back, meant something powerful to them, something dangerous. Her parents hid her for years because of it. And now the attackers knew she was still alive. Marcus heard the demand and instantly understood. He stepped forward, shaking his head firmly. He spoke loudly to them, refusing their offer. The hostile aliens laughed cruelly. They spread out, surrounding the camp like hungry beasts. Leary felt tears in her eyes. She pulled her knees to her chest, terrified that the humans would hand her over just to avoid a fight. That was what most people did before. That was why her parents kept running. But Marcus didn't even look back at her hiding spot. He raised his weapon and shouted for the humans to hold the line. The attackers charged with a roar. Humans fired warning shots. The fight exploded around her with terrifying noise. Leary trembled as she hid behind the crate. She covered her ears, but she could still hear the sharp sounds of energy blasts and shouts mixed together. She peeked over the crate just in time to see an attacker trying to break through the human line. Heading right toward her side of the camp, Marcus saw him too, and without thinking, he sprinted toward her. His movements were fast and desperate. He reached her just in time and pulled her into his arms again, shielding her with his body. He shouted to his team for cover as he retreated deeper into the camp. The attackers were getting closer, too close. She clung to him, shaking with fear. not wanting to lose him the way she lost her parents. "Why do they want me?" she whispered, her voice cracking. Marcus could not understand her words, but he looked at her with fierce determination. His eyes told her the truth. He wasn't going to let them take her. He wasn't going to let them hurt her, even if he had to fight the entire army alone. The camp echoed with chaos, but in the middle of all that noise, one thing became clear to Leary. The monsters she feared were not the humans. The real monsters were the ones hunting her. And Marcus was the only shield she had left in the world. The attack grew louder, sharper, more violent, and Leary held on to Marcus as tightly as her small hands allowed. He carried her behind a fallen metal structure, breathing hard, scanning the battlefield with sharp eyes. Humans were fighting bravely, forming walls of protection around the camp. Their movements were fast, trained, and coordinated. But the attackers were many, moving like shadows through the smoke. Their glowing armor reflected firelight, making them look even more terrifying. Marcus set Leary down gently behind a stack of supply crates. "Stay hidden," he whispered with his hands, pressing his palm to his chest and then pointing to her. She understood, even if she hated the idea of him going back into danger. Her tiny fingers refused to release his sleeve. Marcus hesitated, touched her head softly, and gave her a small nod. Then he stepped back into the fight, raising his weapon as flames and sparks lit up the air around him. Leary watched with wide, trembling eyes. Marcus moved with purpose, blocking an incoming alien, pushing another away before they reached the inner camp. He was fighting not for himself, but for her. Every move he made protected the line between danger and the small child he swore to keep safe. She felt a deep ache in her chest, a feeling she didn't understand at first. But it grew stronger with every second she watched him risk his life. One of the attackers shouted in their harsh alien language, "The marked one is here. Find her." Leary's blood turned cold. More attackers rushed toward her side, ignoring the humans, moving with frightening speed. She shrank back behind the crates, covering her mouth so she would not scream. Marcus saw the movement and shouted something urgently to his team before sprinting toward her again. Energy blasts struck the ground near him, sparks flying around his legs. He slid behind another barrier and exchanged fire with the attackers. His face was tight with panic, not for himself but for her. Leary wanted to run. She wanted to help somehow, but her legs felt like stone. She pressed herself against the ground and prayed quietly for someone to save him the way he saved her. Suddenly an explosion shook the earth, throwing dust and smoke everywhere. Leary coughed and covered her face. Her vision blurred, and when the dust settled a little, she saw 3 attackers circling the area where she hid. Their eyes glowed with triumph. One of them reached out a hand toward her, a cruel smile stretching across his face. "Come with us, child," he snarled. "Your mark belongs to us. Your power belongs to us." Before they could grab her, a shadow moved behind them, fast and silent. Marcus crashed into the first attacker with full force, knocking him to the ground. He swung his weapon like a shield, protecting her with his whole body. The second attacker lunged at him with a blade. Marcus blocked it, sparks flying from the impact. He grunted in pain but didn't step back. Leary screamed his name, but the sound was drowned out by the battle around them. Marcus kicked the blade aside, fired a stun round into the alien's chest, and turned to the third attacker, who charged with a roar. Marcus grabbed the alien's arm, twisted it, and forced him to the ground. His movements were desperate, but controlled. Every struggle, every breath he took was for her. Leary's heart hammered painfully as she watched him bleed from a cut on his side. She wanted to run to him, but he shook his head sharply, telling her to stay back. An energy blast struck the ground near her, throwing her onto her side. She gasped and crawled backward, tears burning her eyes. Marcus saw this and his face changed. He looked terrified, not of the attackers but of losing her. He pushed himself to his feet and practically threw himself between her and the incoming threat. Another blast hit him in the shoulder, knocking him down. Leary cried out in panic. Her small legs finally moved. She crawled to his side, grabbing his arm. Marcus tried to push her back, but she refused to leave him. She pressed her forehead against his arm and whispered, "Don't leave me, don't leave me." Marcus grit his teeth and forced himself up. He grabbed her gently but firmly, lifting her into his arms. He ran toward the far edge of the camp where the trees grew thick and the ground dipped into a hidden valley. Humans covered his retreat, firing at the attackers, shouting for him to go. Go now. Leary looked back and saw humans falling, fighting, protecting her with their last strength. Her throat tightened painfully. Marcus stumbled into the trees, breathing hard, sweat and blood on his face. He set her down behind a thick root and knelt in front of her, his hands shaking as he brushed her hair from her face. His eyes said what words couldn't. He would die before he let them take her. She grabbed his hand with both of hers, tears streaming down her cheeks, and for the first time, she spoke to him clearly. You are not monster. You are my protector. Marcus froze, then smiled weakly. His hand tightened around hers as the sound of enemies approached again. And Leary finally understood the truth with her whole heart. The humans weren't the monsters. The monsters were the ones trying to take her life. And Marcus. Marcus was ready to fight the whole world to keep her safe. The forest was quiet for a moment, but it was not a peaceful quiet. It was the kind of silence that warns of danger hiding behind every shadow. Marcus held Leary's hand tightly as he led her deeper into the thick trees. His breathing was rough, and she could see blood soaking through the cloth he pressed against his shoulder. He tried to hide the pain, but she noticed it with every step he took. The girl kept glancing back, afraid the attackers would appear again, afraid they would take Marcus away from her, the way they took everything else. They finally reached a hidden cave entrance covered by long roots and moss. Marcus pushed the roots aside and guided her inside. The cave was small but defensible, with narrow walls that only one person could enter through at a time. He set her down gently near the back, then checked the entrance. Listening carefully, Leary watched him, her chest tight with worry. She wanted to tell him to rest, but she knew he wouldn't, not until he was sure she was safe. Marcus knelt beside her, breathing slowly so she would not panic. He placed his hand on her shoulder and gave her a small, tired smile. She reached for his injured arm, her tiny fingers trembling, and she whispered, "You hurt." Marcus shook his head at first, trying to reassure her, but she saw the pain in his eyes. She moved closer, pressing her forehead to his arm, the way her mother used to when she wanted to comfort someone. He relaxed a little, letting her touch calm him, and whispered something soft that she could not understand but felt like a thank you. Outside, footsteps echoed through the forest. The hostile aliens were searching for them. Their voices were sharp and cold. Leary pulled closer to Marcus, fear shaking through her small body. Marcus gently covered her mouth with his hand, not to silence her, but to comfort her. He whispered slowly, "It's all right. It's all right." Even if she didn't understand the words, she understood the softness in them. The attackers passed by the cave multiple times, their shadows sliding across the entrance like hungry wolves. Marcus stayed completely still, holding her close, ready to shield her with his body again. Leary felt his heartbeat, steady, strong, and she felt her own fear ease just a little. The humans fought for her, they protected her, they bled for her. The monsters outside wanted her for power, for control, for something she never asked for. Marcus wanted nothing from her except for her to stay safe. After a long while, the footsteps faded. Marcus waited a bit longer, then carefully moved to block the cave entrance with stones. Leary watched him stagger slightly, his wound bleeding again. She hurried to him, grabbing his hand with a tiny worried sound. He looked at her and knelt down so she wouldn't feel smaller than she already was. He tapped her cheek lightly, a gesture of comfort he had learned from watching her people, and she smiled weakly through her fear. When he sat down against the cave wall, she crawled onto his lap without thinking. She curled against his chest, feeling his warmth, his strength, and the softness of his jacket around her shoulders. Marcus hesitated for a second, surprised, then wrapped his arms around her carefully. She felt safe for the first time since her parents were taken. The silence of the forest no longer felt like danger. It felt like rest because Marcus was there. A faint crackle came from his radio. He lifted it slowly, trying not to jostle her. A human voice whispered through the static, "Marcus, we're regrouping. Hold position. We're coming to get you." Marcus closed his eyes in relief. Leary looked up confused. He pointed at the radio, then pointed outside, then made a walking motion with his fingers. She understood. Help is coming. She felt a strange feeling in her chest. Hope. Something she had almost forgotten how to feel. Marcus rested his head lightly against the cave wall, exhausted. Leary reached up and gently touched his cheek. "You saved me," she whispered. He looked at her with soft, warm eyes, the kind that held no hunger, no cruelty, no monster inside. And for the first time, he understood her words without translation. Her small voice carried more meaning than anything else in the world at that moment. A distant explosion echoed through the forest. The human rescue team was close now. The sounds of battle grew louder, but this time the fear didn't drown her completely. She pressed closer to Marcus, trusting him with her whole heart. Marcus gently tightened his arms around her, whispering something she couldn't understand, but felt like a promise. She felt his heartbeat grow steady again, not because he was unafraid, but because he refused to give up. Minutes later, human voices filled the forest, calling Marcus's name softly. He lifted Leary into his arms and stood slowly, protecting her even in his weakened state. He stepped out of the cave and signaled to the rescue team. They rushed forward, covering them instantly. A medic moved to him, but Marcus shook his head and pointed to Leary first, telling them to help her before him. Leary grabbed his shirt tightly, refusing to let go, even as the medic checked her injuries gently. She looked around at the humans surrounding her, their faces worried, kind, relieved. Then she looked up at Marcus again, her voice trembling but full of certainty. "I was wrong about humans," she whispered. "You are not monsters, you are protectors." Marcus looked down at her with tired eyes and a soft smile. Then he placed his hand on her head, gently and lovingly, and as the rescue team led them back toward safety, Leary held onto him, knowing with absolute truth that the humans had saved her life, her heart, and her future. The monsters were never the ones with warm eyes and gentle hands. The real monsters were the ones who hunted her, and the human who she once feared the most had become the one she trusted the most in the entire universe.